Sit back and get ready to have the most fun you ever had with an electronic device.
The main thing I wanted to get to is Rutgers won. Rutgers won their first game.
In what?
Football.
Oh, okay.
for all you youngsters out there.
I only asked because I know their
lacrosse. What are you talking about?
Their badminton team has been dominant the last 4 or 5 years.
All right, everybody, welcome out to the Logger Room. It is Wednesday, December 9th, 2020. Jersey Johnny coming at you, and with me, as always, are Mr. RadioPete and Mr. Harry Lug Nutz. Say hello, guys.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello. We are here, as always, on Wednesday night. It is just after 7 o'clock, and we're going to get started with some NFL for you straight out of the gate.
What?
Yeah, why not?
We never do NFL first.
Oh, no.
That's right.
All right, so
It up.
Badminton.
Is there a Thursday night postponed to Monday night, Wednesday night game tonight?
No, Thursday night's game has actually been postponed to Friday morning.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So
Well, first
9:35.
That's right. It's being broadcast by Hoda
Hoda. Yes.
and Jenna Bush.
Well, no, Kathy Lee's actually coming back on for this.
She's coming back.
Yeah,
they're going to be interviewing the coaches on the sideline.
Exactly. So
First, it was postponed till a little bit later Thursday night.
right.
And then it moved it to Friday morning, and they figured, we'll get Kathy Lee in there.
Yeah,
Kathy
exactly.
Lee invented a Chardonnay-infused mask that she can use to interview people.
Speaking of masks, actually, I just got these the other day. I didn't open them up yet. There you go.
Wow.
Ooh.
Now those were actually done pre-COVID just to hide your face when you go to a Giants game.
This is true. Now they actually work better for you.
That's right.
You know what would be great? If Kathy Lee would get on the sidelines wearing a Frank Gifford mask.
Sure.
And would do the interviews that way.
Yes.
Well, I heard after being together for so long, you start to look like each other. And Kathy Lee and Frank look nothing like each other. They really didn't resemble each other at all.
No.
So,
I would like to see her in a Gifford mask.
I
think that is ratings gold.
I think we should actually push for that. We should.
The Gifford mask is one of the hottest sellers on Etsy right now. So.
It is. Only with the bedazzled sides, though.
I would like to do a poll of people who are on Etsy actively of how many actually know who Frank Gifford is. I would guess it would be 1/100th of a percentage.
If there was one person on Etsy.
Yes.
I think that would be the bet. Would it be more than, let's say, 1%?
Right.
Or more than 0.5%?
No, it would be less than 0.5%, and that less than 0.5% would say that it was their favorite Backstreet Boy.
Frank Gifford, wasn't he involved in that 1980s movie Fletch?
You're still going back too far, John, for Etsy users.
They
were all born in 2000.
This is true.
And that's what we call football talk, folks.
And that's football talk, folks. So,
cheers.
Cheers. Yes, cheers.
So we want. I have a container of water. Brought to you by
Smirnoff Vodka
And JP Morgan.
There we go. An unofficial sponsor of the Logger
That's
Room.
right. If you give us $300,000 a year, we'll give you a water bottle.
It's a very good water bottle, though, in all honesty.
EPA free.
It was great till the top broke off. So.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Oh, well.
All right. Well, speaking about the Giants and Frank Gifford, well, you know what? Hey, they beat Seattle. This is the first time they beat a team. It was the first game this year that any team in the NFC East beat a team with a winning record, and a good team at that, not just barely a winning record. Are they there yet? I mean, was it a fluke?
Their defense is there, and I would say no, only because now look, will they play that well again against a good team? Maybe not. I mean, the defense almost played a perfect game,
right?
But the defense has been looking good the last 3 or 4 weeks, and the other thing is that whatever they did to shake up the change at the offensive line coach has and the fact that they know that they have a backup quarterback in there. The offensive line, to me, also gets really high grades. So the defense played great. The special teams was not great, but the Giants' offensive line did enough to control the ball and protect their weaknesses on the offensive side. And the Giants' defense looked like a top 5 defense, which they have been since week 9.
Yeah.
They're top 5 defense.
In a comment here, Matt Patensky says they actually ran the ball too.
Well, yeah, it's old school Giants football. You know, it's a winning formula. It seems to have worked for many, many years in the NFL.
It's amazing, sort of rediscovered.
Yeah,
well, you said about the defense. I mean, Leonard Williams was named the NFC Defensive Player of the Week for this past week, obviously football.
And the Jets say you're welcome.
Yes.
Although, let's be fair, he never would have been the same player had he stayed with the Jets.
Not at all.
That he is. And look, he's not necessarily Hall of Fame bound, but boy, he seems like he's got the goods. And look, the Giants are a team on the way up, you know.
Yeah.
They're getting better in just about every facet.
Yeah.
Their defense was, I think, spectacular, especially their secondary. I mean, Russell Wilson had time. You know, they were not necessarily getting to him quickly, and he had time.
They got to him a bunch. They got to him a bunch, but a lot of time he did have time.
Took a long time, and he had time, and he had time, and he had time, and still there was no one open. And he spun around and ran over here, and eventually he would throw it away or they would catch it. The defense was spectacular.
They just look quicker, and
they look quicker and real quick to the ball. Whenever whoever had it, they were quick to get to it.
And they're using their athleticism on the defensive line. They're running a lot more stunts and movement as opposed to just a direct straight ahead bull rush. And it's throwing the offensive line off. And it's also, it's with a quarterback like Wilson and other quarterbacks in this league. It's about not only getting to him, but containing him and making him throw the ball over you. And that's what they did. And when he did bounce to the outside, they were there. So it was a great defensive game. Look, for a team that's, was a couple weeks ago, we were talking about potentially having a winless season.
Right.
It's hard to believe that, all of a sudden the Giants are, legitimate in this sense.
In the last 7 games, they've gone 5-2.
Yeah, but it's not all of a sudden.
No.
I mean, they were 0-5, right?
But
they were 0-5, and they've gone 5-2.
I do think their defense is, at this point right now, I think their defense is somewhere between number 5 and number 10 in the league. Yeah, and that's enough for them to win games against legitimate teams now.
And that's even, Colt McCoy certainly didn't have a good day, but they were able to run the ball, and they were able to keep him out of enough situations where he might be prone to make mistakes, that they were able to get a win out of it.
Yeah. And here's the thing: when
say that when you say Colt McCoy,
you got to say that. Yeah.
When the offensive line knows that, hey, we're going to be running the ball more than we normally are, we're going to be throwing it a third of the times that we normally would. That's a sign of whether either an offensive line is going to step. There's nothing more than an offensive line wants to do than to know that for most of the game, I'm going to be going right at that person across from me, and I'm going to blow open a hole for my running back.
Right.
And the Giants' offensive line looks – I mean, they've improved 50-60% since the beginning of the year.
They really have. And, if what Joe Judge did with Mark Colombo and the firing and bringing in Dave DeGuglielmo, that was genius. And I know he was getting involved in it before he brought in DeGuglielmo, but he made the right moves. And it's a lot of people have been saying it, and I agree. The coaching here is what's doing right. I mean, because there's a lot of players, right, that were on this team last year that are still there. And there's some new blood and everything else. Obviously, they made some good offseason moves, especially defense with Blake Martinez and Kyle Fackrell and
Martinez
Logan Ryan.
Martinez is fantastic.
Yeah, he's a monster. He's insane. But the coaching is really, really good. And Pete Carroll even said it after the game. He says they're well coached and they've been playing great football.
I don't give their offensive play calling anything better than what it was. They've simplified it.
Yeah.
And they're running the ball quickly and hitting the hole, and the holes are there. Now, they might not get 8 yards a pop. They might be getting 3.5.
Sure.
But if you get 3.5, you got a first down.
Well, I think
and that's what they're doing. And so I don't really think the Giants play calling is they had to simplify it.
No, I'm not giving kudos to Garrett or anything else. I'm giving kudos to Garrett for simplifying it and whatever he did. It's working. But I think the props go to the defense playing at an amazing level right now, and the offensive line gelling. and actually playing good football.
And
it's very, I mean, they always had a running game, right? I mean, Gallman wasn't a slouch. It's not that he just became this really good back. And they had Barkley, the best damn running back in the league. So
I would argue, and people are going to kill me for saying this. I think Gallman's a better running back for what this offensive line can do right now than Barkley, because he's quicker to the hole in a lot of ways, and he just goes with it.
Right.
There's not a lot of dancing around, and not that Barkley's necessary, but Barkley has more of that lateral movement and is able to wait and read a little longer.
I get what you're saying, and I do on some level agree with it, but we haven't seen Barkley behind this line.
But we really haven't seen Barkley in now
a year and a half. Yeah. I do agree with you though. So I mean, hey, you know what? If they keep putting this thing together, and I'm not ending this year already, but it's really looking up to, it's exciting to think about what they're going to be next year, at this point.
And if Daniel Jones comes back, I hope they stick with this somewhat close to this balance of run pass. If they're able to get out, control the ball, and get the lead.
You know what? It's working. Why wouldn't they? And the only thing I think you're going to see different is Daniel Jones doing some RPOs and running some ball.
Which I will tell you, he looks a lot better this year doing that than obviously he did last. And he's proven he's got some wheels on him. I mean, they're only good for 60 yards, but he can move.
I was going to say, Dave asked Harry really quick. Both running backs are healthy. I'm assuming he's talking between Wayne Gallman and Saquon Barkley. Who are you starting?
Well, I think you got to start Barkley. He's your number. You used a top draft pick on him. Arguably, as John said, some would argue I don't think he's the best running back in the league, but he's argued top 10. So I think you have to use him. But I think you have to use both. I think you have to mix him in there. Yeah. And I think you have to protect how many touches he gets. So that's where Gallman comes in pretty handy. The other thing is that you could use both of them. And that makes Barkley a hell of a pass option, which I don't think the Giants have really utilized him enough.
Not at all. Not at all. And I mean, just based on that, I mean, think about it. Wayne Gallman had a great game on Sunday. But, Alfred Morris
he could have a lousy game this week. And
he's
maybe not the solution.
And Alfred Morris is a good option too. Here, if Gallman's
but
in the
they
backfield,
went to him too. I'm saying while they were going to Gallman, so it's not like it was just the Gallman show all day on Sunday.
And this idea that you could only have one running back or no running backs for an offense to be successful in today's NFL. I would like to see Gallman back there to keep the defense honest and have Barkley either in motion or flank him out.
Sure, I mean, well, you think about it, Morris had both touchdowns, right? I mean, he had a rushing touchdown and he had a receiving touchdown.
And he's always been able to get in the end zone. He's obviously a good red zone back.
Right.
He's probably maybe their best red zone back.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the real question moving forward for the New York Football Giants. What do you do with Saquon Barkley when it's contract time?
You do what the Giants always do.
You let him go.
Well, you know what? He's got another year, and then they're probably gonna tender him. So I don't.
Do you franchise him?
Well, I think.
Are you going to give him a lot of money for a position that has obviously been so devalued?
Well, it's not really not really going to throw a ton of money at him because that's the 5th year option with the rookies, right? Because this year is his third year.
Third year.
So
we really have 2 more years.
He's still got another year, maybe 2, depending as far as money goes, before they actually have to open the checkbook.
I think the end of this year dictates a lot, and next year.
Mm-hmm. Right.
If he's looking like, hey, all right, his durability's up, he's playing at the level or even close to the level where the expectations were.
Right.
Then you have to be realistic and make him an offer. Now it might not be a 6-year offer for X amount of money, because that's not a prudent move in today's NFL.
Not
I mean,
at all.
how many running backs, with the exception of like Frank Gore, how many running backs have even 5 and 6 years careers where they're, of this new batch of running backs? Obviously the Adrian Petersons, the Frank Gores, the Alfred Morrises, they're coming from almost a different generation, and they're on their last leg.
They are a different generation. So.
it's just the way. I mean, Derrick Henry. How many years has he been in the league now? He's there. You need multiple running backs. That's been proven because of just the inability for them to stay healthy.
Right. But it's also been proven that you really don't need to have the best running back in the league to win a Super Bowl.
And here's the other thing.
Look at Super Bowl winning teams lately. How many of them in the past 15 years have had the best running back in the league when they won the Super Bowl?
But here's the best possible scenario. Okay, Barkley comes back. He's healthy. He finishes this year if he comes back this year, or next year has a great season. Then you have a situation where you either have incredible trade value, or you sign him to a contract that's mutually agreeable that he accepts. That's good for the team, and that's a shorter term contract probably than what some other people that he might be looking for. And so I think there's some opportunities there.
Yeah, but I guess my point is if he goes, haven't you kind of wasted the number 2 pick? Now, granted, he was hurt, so you didn't get the full use out of him. But, listen, he could have been completely healthy this year, and the Giants would have been somewhat better. But I don't know if we'd be talking about them as Super Bowl contenders. Right. So that's kind of my point. They took that pick, and if Gettleman's still around, will he even let him go? Will he be able to? Right.
That's another story right there.
If he goes, then you're kind of admitting, we sort of wasted that pick. We really didn't get anything out of that number 2.
Yeah, I don't think
unless you're going to give him the money.
Right. Well, like I said, I think next year is going to be the telltale. Next year, not just obviously what he does in the field, but if he can stay healthy. I mean, this is 2 years in a row now. He's had a knee injury.
That's the biggest question mark with him to me. That's the biggest question mark.
If he's gonna play all next year, and he does what he did his rookie year, and even bests it, and stays healthy the entire year, he's not going anywhere.
No. Other than quarterback, for the Giants' biggest offensive stars that they've had, which let's be honest, have mostly been receivers over the last number of years,
and defensive linemen
I'm saying offensive stars.
Yeah.
Although early this season, the defensive line was the
of course, yeah.
Star. But the Giants have never given big contracts out.
Not at all.
They've said, and I'll be honest with you, the Giants are pretty good at drafting receivers. They have a pretty good history of it.
Absolutely.
And if there's enough running backs around, then I think you take that money and you spend it elsewhere. I hope the best for Saquon Barkley, but I think the biggest thing is what is his durability? And in 2 years, when he's 27, do you want to be offering him a 5-year, 6-year contract? I don't think you do.
Well, yeah, like I said, I think that depends on if he does, like I said, if he does amazing next year and has a better year than he had his rookie campaign, and tears up records and stays healthy the entire year, and then comes back in his 5th year and does the same thing, he's not going anywhere. Yeah. They might not give him Odell Beckham money, but they're not going to give him much less, and they're going to keep him, especially if Gettleman's here, because he's not going to take the fall and say, hey, I was wrong. Say he was wrong for picking him number 2. It's not going to happen. But like I said, it all depends on what he does the next 2 years. Performance and his health are what's going to,
I think the health is the most important thing.
Yeah. And as far as what they'll give him or how much they could give him.
Well, if he stays healthy.
That will, right, assuming he stays healthy and all that. That'll also depend on what anyone else is willing to give him.
Sure, absolutely.
But if the market is still depressed for running backs and they're still kind of devalued, and why would we think that they wouldn't be? It seems like this trend is going to continue for a while. And, he's only as valuable as anyone else, as much as anyone else is going to give for him.
Right. But it's the same thing, though. If he stays healthy but underperforms and Gallman runs all over him next year, okay, great, he stayed healthy, but why did he stay healthy?
Right. And at that point, let's say the end of next year, even if he's healthy but he hasn't performed, do you look to trade?
Right. Yeah. Maybe you take him and package him up with somebody and get something else that you need. But yeah.
Again, that question looms. This is a number 2.
Right.
And have you gotten enough out of him? But obviously, only time will tell.
Well, a couple things to wrap up this Giants talk. One, Daniel Jones might be back for Sunday's game against Cardinals, and the week after the Giants Browns game, was just flexed today to Sunday night, so it's a primetime game that week. So on the 20th. So obviously the NFL feels that the Giants-Browns is a draw. Think about the Browns a couple years ago and the Giants for the last couple of years. What has happened over the last several weeks? The Giants-Browns is a draw, and then they flex it to primetime.
I think they're looking at the potential of Cleveland's offense versus the
Giants
now
defense.
Emerging Giants defense. That's
absolutely.
the draw.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting that's what can we put on Sunday night? How about Cleveland and the New York Giants? That is not something that would have been said.
Not in the least.
In the last several of the last years.
It's 84.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe by a guy who wanted to get fired. He would have brought that up, but the rest, that was not something that was going to be said at any meeting.
It's crazy. And let's bring up OBJ for just a quick hot second there. He was on. I'm sure both of you have heard. He was on the All Things Covered podcast.
He was on The View.
He was on The View yesterday, and Whoopi asked him. No, he was on the All Things Covered podcast, and he basically was lashing out at, Jerry Reese, even though he's not there anymore. Everybody that's not there anymore, he was lashing out at Jerry Reese, Ben McAdoo, and Pat Shurmur, and saying he felt betrayed by Pat Shurmur. Apparently, Pat Shurmur, told everybody else on the team to stay away from Odell. Pat
Shurmur also told everybody on the offense to stay away from the end zone.
This is very true. He definitely did do that. But and then throughout the podcast, he was sticking up for Eli. And, correct me if I'm wrong, but when he first got traded to Cleveland, wasn't he bashing Eli? There's the crazy ex-girlfriend who, with time, comes around.
And I think the one thing he did say, whether or not, of course he was protecting his own ego.
Sure.
But the one thing he did say...
It's all about Odell when it comes to Odell.
Sure. The one thing he did say that I agree with him is that the Giants failed in Eli's last years to put talent around him.
I totally agree with that.
And I agree with that.
Absolutely.
And look, I understand it takes time, but Eli had no protection. He really didn't have, once, especially after Beckham left, he really didn't have that A or even B receiver out there.
He had Shepard. That's it. That's all he was left with.
But again, in today's NFL, when you have one receiver and you don't have somebody to deflect attention from him, then it's hard. And so that is true. I mean, Eli was stuck in a situation where he did not have a lot of talent around him. Now, so again, it's Odell Beckham. So of course people are going to listen and we're going to talk about it. But my main response is, oh God, who cares?
I don't really care about anything Odell Beckham has to say.
He's
going to run his mouth no matter what the situation is.
I think he's the saddest player with so much talent that has just dropped off precipitously. Maybe in the history of the NFL. It's sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. And you know what? And it's become a cautionary tale for young millennial receivers. What not to do if you have talent and you make it to the NFL.
Well, I think he also realized that the one thing that Eli did do is Eli targeted him. Eli made sure to give him the best opportunities to catch the ball. I think he had the most targets in his career per game when he was with the Giants, and Eli was throwing to him, obviously. Sure. So, I think the grass is always greener, and he's on a team with a lot more talent right now.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of he's just not excelling the way that he excelled in those first couple seasons with the Giants.
Well, let me ask you this. Are the Giants better without Odell Beckham right now? Are the Giants better without Odell?
Yeah.
Today.
I think they are only because of his personality. If you could get his talent on somebody else, that would not be such a distraction. But think of all of the top receivers in the game, okay, with the exception of Larry Fitzgerald. They're kind of cut out of the same mold.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Any team that is not winning is consistently is better off without Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who it is. If he's on the team and they're not winning consistently, they're better off without him.
He'll probably wind up on the Chiefs.
Probably will, and win a couple Super Bowls,
and catch like four catches in the Super Bowl for touchdowns.
He'll be on the Jets in a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this.
You can only hope.
Let me ask you this. The Browns are 9-3 right now. The Browns are 9-3.
Yes.
Are the Browns better without Odell right now? Are they 9-3?
No, I don't think so.
Are they 9-3 because Odell got hurt, or are they 9-3 in spite of the fact that Odell got hurt?
In spite. I mean, I think when he comes back, his role is going to be second to third receiver in that offense, and that only helps their offense. I still think Odell has 2 or 3 good years in him. If he just gets his head and screwed on straight and gets healthy and accepts his role, he could be really dangerous. Yeah. He's that talented. I mean, let's just. He is what he is. I just think that a little bit of loss of speed without the other skill set, and that's the difference. And he was a burner, and he still is, but not quite as much as what he used to be.
But the Cleveland offense has as we all know, lots of weapons, and he's just going to open things up for everyone on that team.
But again, much like the Giants offense, what did Cleveland do when Odell Beckham got hurt and they realized that they didn't have their passing game wasn't working as well as they did? Right. They started running the ball and running it really well. I think they're the leading.
Well, they have a couple of good running backs on that team.
Yeah, a couple of really good running backs.
So it just goes to prove that sometimes when you have an offense that isn't necessarily clicking with all of its timing, with a relatively young quarterback and a new group of receivers, tell your offensive line to
take the pressure off of them.
Tell your offensive line to put their head down and blow some people away and let the running backs do their job. And I think that's Cleveland's success in a lot of ways.
I'll say this, and I've said it before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. If Jerry Reese isn't retained, and they don't fire Coughlin, and they fire Jerry Reese and give Coughlin the reins as GM, back when Coughlin retired, obviously or resigned, if you will, after 2016, and brought in people for a couple of years for Eli. I think Odell's still on the Giants, and the Giants have been performing better for the last couple of years. Jerry Reese, to me, I'm sorry, and I've said it, like I said, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. He benefited from Ernie Accorsi and the moves Ernie Accorsi made before he became GM, and made, other than signing Odell, what did he do? He signed Flowers. Oh, that was a good move. And several others. Look, I don't think there's anybody as of last year. I don't think there was anybody left that was a first round pick of Jerry Reese's. So, hey, you know what? I agree with. Summing it up, I basically agree with what Odell said on that respect. Everything else was just Odell being Odell. So,
Good for him. You go get him, Odell.
All right. Well, that brings us to the other New York team. Not that we have a lot to talk. What's that?
Buffalo?
Buffalo. Yes, that brings us to Buffalo. No.
I'm sorry. You said the other. I thought you said the only.
The only New York
team. If you
said
the only, we'd be talking about the
I gotcha.
The quest for 16.
Now, I was talking about the Jets.
So close.
Your Jets, they're so close. Missed it by that much.
Well, they do have their eye on the ball. They know that Trevor Lawrence is pretty good. I think that defensive call at the end of the game proved that, I think they really want Trevor Lawrence.
Well, that's the real question, is why? Greg Williams, you don't think he's not going to be there next year? Was he really just trying to help the Jets get the number one pick? The other side of the coin is, that's Greg Williams, and that's what he does. That's something he's never done before in that kind of situation. There was no other reason to make that call except to give the Raiders a better chance of scoring.
I'll give you.
I think he took one for the team.
I'll give you the stat really
That's
quick.
what I think too. I nominated him on Facebook for.
I think it's like being part of
coordinator of the year.
You did?
I think it's like being part of the Trump administration. You know you're not going to be there in 4 months, but you still do what's best for the team.
But right, and that was kind of the argument. Like, they go, well, this is going to be a black mark. You already have Bountygate, and this is going to be just a guy who. But I think he could, looking for another job, he could say, listen, the Jets have a goal here, and it's not to beat the Raiders.
Right.
It's to get the first pick, and I did everything I could to help them out, just like I would do for you if you want to hire me, looking for his next job.
I completely agree because
it's a tough call to figure out which one it is.
Look, Greg Williams isn't the best defensive coordinator in the league. He's also not the worst defensive coordinator in the league, and he does know what's right and what's wrong. I'll give you the stat really quick. That was cover 0, right? It was the only time in the last 14 years that call in that situation was made. Okay? There is never in any NFL game, regular season or postseason, that call, cover 0, in the last 14 years has been made. So he either wanted to get fired or do a solid for the Jets. And
that was my other question. Is he just, I can't do this anymore.
I'm done with this. I need out.
And he kind of sees. If you look at that game, you could kind of see the writing on the wall, right? Mm-hmm. They should have won that game. There's no reason other than that ridiculous call. The
holidays are coming up. It's a nice long vacation. So.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if he gets fired, he gets his money. If he quits, he doesn't. Right? I mean, that's basically.
So he's out the door. He's free and clear. He gets to stay home. Just as everybody's COVID numbers are going up too. By the way.
Sure.
And he can. I think the argument that he would never do that intentionally, because it's going to be a mark against him, and who's going to ever want to hire him again? I absolutely think he can go to another team and go, look what I did.
So he made an offensive defensive move.
Yeah, I sullied my reputation even further in order to further, to maintain the goal of the Jets, which is to lose every game and get Trevor Lawrence.
Sure. Somebody was quoted, I forget who it was, but somebody was quoted on SNY as saying, the Jets jetted the jettiest thing ever. Yeah,
well, listen, they don't do much well. Right. So, kind of add this to the list of things.
And then Marcus May the next day called out Williams, but prior to the firing. So, you know what? Was that good of him to do that? Calling out Williams or was it just frustration? Or do you think it was like this elaborate plot that they put him in there to do that because they knew damn well what was happening from the get-go?
Do you really think the Jets are capable of an elaborate plot for anything?
No.
Yeah, I don't think they think much more than half a step ahead, let alone 2 or 3 steps ahead. So,
right. Will they lose all 16 games?
There's a good chance.
Yeah.
I think it's better now. I think we're seeing the Patriots coming around because that final week. Look, who are they facing this week? The very angry Seahawks.
Right.
Thank you very much, football giants. So this is, this is not that the Jets would really have much of a chance against the Seahawks, but this is certainly a game that they're going to be. Maybe the Seahawks aren't as good as we all thought. They certainly haven't played that way recently after a hot start, but still they're better than the Jets. So maybe this is the best of both worlds for the Jets. You get to see Sam Darnold continue to develop. That's what you're hoping for.
Sure.
And they're going up against what is arguably, I think, a better team, and that's pissed. And let's face it, is fighting for its division title itself, and maybe for its playoff life. So you get that, and then
Seattle loses a couple more games, and they may be out of the playoffs altogether.
They might be out, so they have a lot of reason to win, and the Jets have plenty of reason, only one reason to lose, of course, but it's a big reason.
Right.
And again, that Week 17 game against the Patriots is really the only one that you would realistically. As well as the Jets did play against Denver or against the Raiders, rather.
Right.
It's kind of hard to think that's going to be really consistent. And we have seen the Raiders play, as we have seen most teams play, really good football certain weeks and then absolutely lousy football the next. So to me, this isn't the Jets really took a step forward. They beat a team which has been every team's been inconsistent, but they've had pretty wild swings, have the Las Vegas Raiders, between good and bad. So that Week 17 game is the one that they might win. And the Patriots, I think, are back. I think Cam Newton is maybe fully recovered from COVID, and they're playing better. Maybe Belichick's figured a few things out. And I think it's less likely that they will win that game. So, yeah, I think they lose all of them. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be hard to lose all of them.
I have to agree. And it's a sad thing, but hey, you know what? Maybe it's a good thing for them in the long run. And you know, a lot of this doesn't just key on them getting that first pick and them taking Trevor Lawrence with that first pick and Trevor Lawrence saying, okay. It depends on who they're going to bring in as coach.
Yeah, well, they still have plenty of things to screw up.
Sure.
They can not bring in the right personnel. They can draft Trevor Lawrence and trade him away and then do a lousy job with the picks.
Right.
Which they should get a boatload of picks for him if he is this generation.
Maybe Trevor Lawrence will come with his college coach.
That's a possibility too, but they would probably not do that because that would be look at any good scenario and say that probably won't happen. Right. So there's plenty of things that the Jets can screw up because
and the whole thing of Trevor Lawrence not wanting to come to the Jets. Look, if you're a number one pick as a quarterback, there's a really good chance you're going to be going to a pretty bad team. So, right. That's one of the things you take on as that top pick. And I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence could just kill it in the New York media market. And as good as Joe Burrow is, and there's an argument, I think, and hopefully he comes back as healthy as ever. There's an argument that I've always made that I think Joe Burrow was a more NFL-ready quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. But that doesn't diminish Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence could be one of the best quarterbacks of all time in the NFL. You just don't know. And so you have to take – I think if they don't pick him, then I think that tells you everything about the Jets.
Right.
Yeah. And it almost isn't about how good the team is because you just said it. He's going to go to a bad team. So really for him, I would think for him, he's going to kind of look at the history of what has that team done? How do they operate? Who's in charge? Who's going to be the coach?
And the odds are there's going to be a new coach. Odds are there's going to be a new coach.
But that's where the Jets come up short. Like if you it's the Jets or maybe it's Jacksonville, let's say. So who if you're Trevor Lawrence, who do you have? Which organization do you have more faith in to do right by you? It's probably not the Jets because they have an abysmal record with everything.
And Jacksonville's just a more comfortable fit based on the fact
and a place you
it's in his backyard, really.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So like I said, plenty of ways for the Jets to screw it up.
Plenty of ways.
So they will.
I mean, he was Trevor Lawrence is. He goes to school in South Carolina. He's from Tennessee. Maybe he would rather be in Jacksonville.
It's not hard to believe.
It's not hard to believe.
There's anyone alive that would be drafted that wouldn't rather play in Jacksonville than for the New York Jets. You can say that about the whole first round, probably.
This is probably true.
There's going to be somebody, whether it's Lawrence or anyone else, the New York Jets take and you just.
Right. Unbelievable.
Somebody's going to be a very disappointed person.
Right. Well, let's I said it before, and it was quoted on SNY. The Jets jetted the jettiest thing. Let's see if each week going forward they continue to jet the jettiest thing.
They're lousy.
But in any event, what about that Browns Titans game the other day? I mean, like we said, the Browns are 9-3. Who are the real Browns? I mean, are they the team that barely beat the Jags the week before, or are they the team that smoked the Texans the Titans this past?
Did they smoke them? I mean, if they played for another 6 minutes, did the Titans not win that game?
You know what? Look at the first 2.5 to 3 quarters.
It's a 4-quarter game.
I understand that, but it was also them playing prevent defense, right? So as any team, I mean, any team can be caught up in that crap. Right. So. Let's put the garbage time away. And in this game, because they were so far ahead, garbage time was a lot longer. So let's give them the kudos for the game they played against Tennessee this past Sunday.
I think the Browns are a more consistent, inconsistent team at the top of that heap than Tennessee is, than Seattle is, than obviously the Raiders are.
Right.
Look, there's question marks about the Steelers. I mean, it still comes down to the fact that I think there's only one elite team in this league. sure, you could put the Steelers as 1B, but I think there's even before they lost, there's a lot of question marks with the Steelers.
A lot of question marks. There really were. They didn't beat anybody. They benefited from a 6-10 record.
And I think you have to put Cleveland in the top of 3 or 4 of that next group of teams. They are legit. They've won a lot of close games. They've beaten some good teams, and time will tell where they're at right now. But they're playing smart football,
right? And
that's what's most impressive about Cleveland right now is that they look good in all 3 phases, and they're not relying on a quarterback to run around and create plays. They're running the ball and they're running it down the throat of people, and they're doing a really good job of it. And their defense looks good.
They do, and it definitely benefited this past Sunday from Myles Garrett coming back this week. So
yeah, they look good in all phases, and I think they obviously have a lot of talent. And listen, that having a big lead early in a game and protecting it and knowing how to do that it's a skill kind of that teams have to learn.
That's a good point.
Unless you're going to keep your foot on the pedal the whole game and really try and run it up, which you don't really want to do. Right. It's tough sometimes to play well enough, so we want to keep them at a distance. And it did get close, and you're right, another drive, and maybe the outcome is different, but they did what they needed to do to win the game. Sure. And I think, when you talk about the elite teams, you kind of say the same thing about Pittsburgh. Yeah, they've got holes, they've got question marks, right, but they are doing what they need to win games. And
even Kansas City is playing from behind at some points, and
right. But
not every game Tyreek Hill is getting 203 yards in the first quarter. It's not every game they play. It's just
listen, they're the masters of the comeback. I mean, if you look at the Steelers and Kansas City, right, and you say, okay, well, we're going to judge them on their wins, then they're both elite teams, obviously, because they only have one loss. But certainly Kansas City, I think, has a little bit more of an added element in their history, and you look at them on paper and you say they're maybe they're a little bit more of an elite team.
Sure.
But, until teams lose and they're out of it, you have to say they're good. You have to say that Pittsburgh, despite those questions, they're finding ways to win. And, maybe that makes them a better team in some ways. If you're not overwhelmingly good,
right,
and you just blow everybody out of the water.
Sure.
And everybody loses a game. I mean, no one's done it since 1970 when. So.
72. Did you see that?
Larry Zonka
video of Larry Zonka? I put it up on the.
Was it 72 when they went?
72.
Yeah, 72.
So smoking a cigar and drinking bourbon. That was great.
And don't overlook the New Orleans Saints.
No,
because
I didn't. That's
I mean,
no. There's plenty of good teams, but.
They're 10-2 and have played 3 games now with the backup quarterback.
3 games with a backup quarterback who obviously we all obviously realize that he's their next starting quarterback. Once Breeze retires, depending on when that is, obviously. But
it might not be for another couple of years.
It might not be for another couple of years, and there you go. Who's got the cop outside? Is it in Long Island or Denver?
I don't know. I have headphones on. I can't hear anything. I mean, I heard the siren, but
gotcha.
They're right on time. They're right on time.
There you go. But hey, you know what? And speaking of the Steelers, I mean, are they as good as their record, or did they just get caught up in a trap game?
I mean, you have to put them in the top 3 teams in the league. I think the other team that I think is right there with the Saints and with the Steelers are the Bills.
Yeah. I mean, they certainly looked the part on Monday night, right? They definitely did. I mean, granted, they were playing a 49ers team that has been playing probably above their level of play with the injuries that they have, but they still look pretty damn good.
That's been a whole year for San Francisco.
Sure.
We were talking about, what was it, week 2 or 3, or when they were beating up on the Jets and the Giants, and half the team was hurt. So they've kind of. Again, they imagine where they would be if they had everybody.
Sure.
Coming back and for more of the season, but they have obviously adapted to that.
Absolutely.
So they're no pushovers because half the starters are on the DL. Although it's not quite that bad anymore. They've got some guys back.
They've got some guys back.
Yeah, Buffalo is definitely for real. Jared Allen is definitely for real.
Yeah. I agree with that, and I think we got a game. I think we got a game involving the Bills to pick this week. So, and it might involve one of the other teams we were talking about too. But a couple quick stats, and then we'll move off of that. Just not to belabor NFL, but Patrick Mahomes. They released it in November. He played 4 games in November. He had 399.5 yards per game average. That's the highest average yardage for a quarterback in 4 games in NFL history. Mm-hmm. It's insane. It's crazy. And I know Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are a big part of that. And obviously, make no mistake, they're obviously helping him a lot. But those are crazy numbers. And
but you never caveated Joe Montana with, oh yeah, I know John Taylor and Jerry Rice were a big part of that, and Roger Craig, No,
you never did. You never did. No, you didn't. You're right.
I mean, Mahomes has.
He had to get the ball to them, right, for them to be able to catch it. So,
I mean, I think there's 2 quarterbacks who have done amazing things with very little talent in their career, and that's Brady and Rodgers. Yeah. I think Mahomes, if he keeps going, could win. He could easily win 4 or 5 Super Bowls. Yeah. And we could be talking about him being the best quarterback of all time if they can keep this team together and keep him healthy.
Sure.
But where he's going towards number 2. So let's pump the brakes a little bit. But
I'm sure he wouldn't be disappointed in being that either behind Tom Brady. So
there's nobody. I mean, if you're starting a team today in the NFL, I think you'd be dumb not to pick Patrick Mahomes.
Of course,
number 1.
Right.
It's a no-brainer.
And on that thing what you were saying as far as Aaron Rodgers being one of them goes. He is the first quarterback in NFL history to throw 35 plus touchdowns in 5 different seasons.
Yeah.
So records galore this year.
He's pretty good.
Guys. Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm just happy that I get to be alive and witness to the Mahomes era.
Yeah, watching all of this. This is funny.
Well, if you think about this current season, it's interesting because you have somebody who's obviously, hopefully, I think within the next couple years on their way out, who many can consider to be the best of all time. You have 2 guys who I think are right behind him in Breeze and Rodgers. Then you have Mahomes. Then you have, the Lamar Jacksons of the world and all of these other young quarterbacks that are playing right now. This is a pretty amazing time for quarterback play. Yeah. It's pretty. I mean, look at Tua coming in and Burrow. I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks right now.
You're right.
And it's a broad spectrum of very old veterans to really young people in their first or second season.
Don't forget about Jameis Winston.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and the game has been tailored for them. So, this is definitely their, coming of the quarterback era, or maybe another quarterback era.
Sure. No, yeah, it is. Well, speaking of those picks, why don't we move on to beaten by the coin?
Beaten by the coin.
Beaten by the coin. Beaten by the coin.
Beaten by the coin.
I'm sure I'll lose to the coin.
No one wants to be beaten by the coin.
All right, so a quick recap from last week. We had a total of 6 games that were picked. We all went 4-2, so nobody moved anywhere. Excuse me, as far as live people go. The coin had a bad week. They went 2-4. We picked Denver against Kansas City and picked San Francisco against Buffalo, and that was the downfall. So as it stands now, Jersey, you're 42-10, finally double digits in losses. So spiteful victory for yours truly.
You know what? I was this close to taking the Giants too.
Yeah,
43-9 would have had.
We all lost with Seattle and Pittsburgh. So, Harry, you're 10 games back, 32-20. I'm 35-17. So, Harry, you and I have narrowed the gap slightly between us. And the coin now just a game over 500, as it should be. 27-26 overall. So screw you, coin.
The coin's a rookie. What do you want?
Yeah, it's a young coin.
It's a baby.
So let's start off this week with New England at them Rams.
New England at the Rams.
In La La Land. Who wants to go first?
I don't.
All right, I'll go first.
Right.
You know what? I went back and forth on this game for a little bit. Not an excessively long time, but a little bit. It was slightly hard, but I'm still gonna take the Rams. The Rams are home. I would probably have a more difficult time picking it if the game was in New England. But yeah, I'm going to say the Rams are. The Pats. Yeah, the Pats are coming around, but I still think what Aaron Donald. That defense is just not going to let as much happen as other teams have with New England. Yeah, I think the Rams are winning this.
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, the Rams are 8-4, but they're potentially as Jekyll and Hyde as any team in the league.
Oh,
but,
sure. And who isn't, though, really, at this point?
Yeah, but it is in L.A. I think that matters much to Bill Belichick. But
it never did.
It never did. So that's nothing new. I think the Rams will pull this one out.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Rams will win. However, if New England does win this game, then I think that's that's a signal that this team's probably could potentially win out and are going to sneak into the playoffs, and would be somebody I wouldn't want to meet in the first round.
Right.
All right. Oop, we're going to flip, and the coin comes up tails.
It's taking New England.
So the coin is taking New England. Foolish coin.
Foolish coin.
All right, we've got the Gents against speaking of Jekyll and Hyde, Arizona Cardinals.
Arizona Dr. Jekyll Cardinals.
Oh, man.
Hey.
I'm going to take the Giants.
Yeah.
I think they're up and coming. Arizona is struggling. Kyler Murray, I'm not going to say he's been exposed because he's still a very good quarterback, but he has limitations. And I think the Giants' defense, if they can replicate a decent percentage of what they did against Seattle, which I think they're capable of doing, they will be able to contain Kyler Murray and sort of keep him in the pocket. And it's very difficult for him to throw over bigger guys.
Yeah.
Because he's tiny.
He's tiny.
3 foot 6 inches tall.
I think he's shorter than that. So,
but they always pump it up a little bit.
He's like 6 foot. He's like 5'11". I mean, this whole story about him being too short is just a crock of shit.
Well, compared to like 6'5", 6'7" quarterbacks, he is short.
Yeah. He's not as tall as Matt Ryan, but he certainly can run a little better.
He's as tall as Doug Flutie.
He's probably taller than Doug Flutie.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah, good. I'll take him.
Well,
all right. So who do we like here?
You know what? It's the first time this year that I'm going to pick him. So I'm going to say that the Giants actually get this win. Kyler Murray, like you said, hey, you know what? Arizona could turn around again, Jekyll and Hyde, and win this game. But Kyler Murray, knock on wood, to my pick, hasn't been playing the way he was. He's not running the ball like he was. He's not throwing over tall backs. I think he's still hurt. I think he's playing.
And that's what happens a lot with young guys. They come into the league and they're hot and flashy, and then people kind of figure out what to do against them. Yeah. And they're still young. He's got to figure out how to counteract what's being done to counteract him.
Sure. I mean, the Giants' defense, Patrick Graham was able to figure out Russell Wilson. I mean,
there we go.
So yeah,
Harry, who do you like?
I'll take the Giants. Yeah.
So the Cardinals have lost to the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Dolphins, and they beat the Cowboys by quite a bit, 28 points.
120.
But the game that really they lost to the Panthers. This is a really hard one to pick.
Right.
I just don't know where Daniel Jones is going to be, and it sounds like he's going to play this week, right?
Yeah.
I want
to pick to him. He would have played last week, but they were smart. So
can the Giants replicate what they did against Seattle? My gut tells me to pick the Giants, but I'm going to pick the Cardinals.
Pick the Cardinals. All right. Let's see what the coin says. Coin says heads, which is the home team.
There you go.
So they like the Giants. Coin likes the Giants. All right, then Jets against Seattle.
I'll take this one.
Let me ask
Take
you
it, Toledo.
No, let me ask you this question: is Seattle that much better than the Raiders?
Yeah.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Are they? Okay.
I think so. They are.
I think so.
So a team that beat Kansas City and almost beat them twice. Okay.
I think they're more.
I think the Jets are going to make this close again.
I'm not saying it's not going to be a good game. I'm not saying the Seahawks are going to blow them out, but the Seahawks are winning this game.
Yeah, and I agree. And I agree with you. But,
I think the Seahawks are going to blow them out. I don't think the Jets
Is that a caveat? In the,
I don't think the Seahawks are capable of blowing anybody out.
Yeah.
You know who they're playing, right?
Oh, I'm picking the Seahawks. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no.
This is going to be a close game.
No, this is going to be brutal. All right, coin says tails. So
Jets.
they like the Jets. There we go.
Stupid coin.
The coin might be right. It was right twice last week.
Look at that.
Okay, here's a big one. Pittsburgh at the Buffalo Bills. And here's somebody's, well, I'm not going to say somebody's definitely going to get exposed, but Pittsburgh maybe has a greater chance of getting exposed. Is maybe not as good as people like me think they are or say they are. And Buffalo, again, this is another prove it Bills kind of game for them, which every game is for them.
I got to tell you, I'm not saying that the Steelers were exposed last week, and I'm not saying that they're a bad team. They're a good team. They're 11-1. You know, you can't be 11-1 no matter who you play, unless you're a good team. So, but I think that the Bills are better than the Steelers at this particular juncture, if you will. So and especially they're home, and I know that doesn't mean much this season, but I'm going to take the Bills.
All right. Harry, thoughts?
You know what's interesting is that the Steelers are only 1.5 point favorite for this game, and it's,
away.
I know it's. I just don't know. I really don't know with this. I think the Bills are going to win this game. I think the Bills are for real.
Yeah, I think Steelers defense was. Keep the ball away from T.J. Watt, and you're kind of okay. It's basically what it boiled down to the other night.
Yeah, I think Buffalo has a lot more to prove to themselves, at least. And listen, Pittsburgh is a really good team. Ben Roethlisberger, obviously, he's what 38. 38,
39, yeah.
I don't think Roethlisberger is really the problem. I think Roethlisberger's had a really good year. But yeah.
He has. I'm not saying he's a problem. I'm just saying he's older and he's maybe, kind of wearing down a little bit.
He's not as fast as he was. Not that he was even fast to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's only running an 8.7 40-yard dash now.
20-yard dash. 8.7 20-yard dash.
He's down 0.2. But, yeah, I think the Bills are going to win this one. And the coin likes the home team, so they like Buffalo as well. George Washington likes Buffalo. And then we got Baltimore at Cleveland. I'm going to go out on a limb. Well, it's not really out on a limb here. And I think Cleveland's going to win this game.
Yeah, I kind of got to agree with you. Cleveland's coming off that high from playing Tennessee. They're thinking about what Baltimore did to them, early in the season. That was just an incredible blowout, and they were, shamed for playing the way they did that year, that game, and they're playing a hell of a lot better football now. I think the Browns will win this game.
Baltimore's favored by 1, which is something I just can't really understand. It tells you that Vegas doesn't have quite the faith in Cleveland as we might. I think. Look, I think Cleveland's going to win this game. I think this is a deciding game for both teams, though.
Yeah,
I think if Baltimore loses this, they're out.
Yeah. Look, the Ravens won yesterday. All right, but they played the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and listen, this Cowboys team is. If there was any doubt that they're an absolute free fall, I mean, they had basically 2 weeks to prepare for Baltimore, who is not completely a one-dimensional team, but more or less.
Right.
And they still gave up, was it 294 yards rushing, I believe?
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
Dallas is a sight for sore eyes. If you're on a losing streak and you're playing the Cowboys right now, you're feeling pretty good.
I mean, you could probably say Dallas. Would you say they're maybe the third worst team in the league overall?
Jets,
Jacksonville, and
Jags.
Dallas.
I mean, the Jags have played in closer games. I would say that maybe
They've
Dallas.
They've kind of been. Yeah, you could maybe put Dallas number 2.
Yeah.
Although Dallas won a couple weeks ago, which throws that off a little bit. But
they're terrible, though. They're really terrible. All right, see what the coin says. Coin likes tails. Coin says tails, so
Baltimore.
They like Baltimore. All right, so we got a few differences. Not that anybody's. I mean, the only real competition here is between you and I, Harry.
Yeah, and I tend to kind of take risks just because I know I'm never going to catch anybody else. Plus, I was off to a bad start because the coin picked me. And I think my first week I was 1-4 or something like that.
2 and 3. You were
2 and 3. Okay.
Yeah, that's what did it.
Well, I haven't had a week.
It's not the 13 weeks after that. It was that first week that buried you.
Well, look at the 13 weeks after that. I haven't had a 2 and 3 week.
True.
Yeah.
I couldn't recover from that.
I've only lost. Yeah. Come on.
All right. Oh, that's funny. All right. Well, so there you go. So that is this week's Beaten by the Coin. All right. Let's move on to our top 10 list this week. Folks, our top 10 list this week is top 10 offensive linemen in NFL history. We went through it. This was a little easier than the last couple weeks, especially the running backs was a couple weeks ago was insane.
It was hard. It was hard. Like 10 through 6 was hard for me. Like there was a couple people I left off that
10 through 8 for me was to top the last 2 or 3. They were difficult, but the top 7 or so were pretty much solidified. So why don't you kick us off there, Radio Pete, with number 10.
Number 10, and there's no A or B involved this week, right?
No A or B. We got actually 10. We actually have 10 offensive linemen.
Our top 10 has 10 guys.
There you go.
And one of my favorite players, Art Shell. Gotta love Art Shell, who had quite a career. He was the players' representative, I think.
Yeah, he was the president of the players.
President of the Players Union.
Players Union, yeah, Players Association.
He also hosted Star Search, didn't he?
I think so.
That was Ed McMahon.
Well, no, Shell filled in for a couple of weeks when Ed was drying out.
Right.
And, anyway, obviously a Hall of Famer, 8 times to the Pro Bowl, a 2-time All-Pro, a couple of Super Bowl wins, played most of his career, actually his whole career with the Raiders in their various forms, on the Hall of Fame All-70s team. A guy, listen, he was a big personality and played most of his career in the era of the 14-game season.
Sure.
And just was consistent, was a guy that you wanted, certainly quarterbacks wanted him protecting them, and running backs wanted him opening holes. Went, I think, 6'5", about 260 or so. And just kind of a consensus. Again, you're right, Harry. It was tough to kind of pick those second 5 in the top 10. And I think he rightfully and deservedly edges in at number 10.
Yeah, absolutely.
Durable guy, too. A few seasons where he even missed a single game.
Yeah, totally durable guy.
And during those Raiders heydays was the quiet, stoic, smart guy on the field that wasn't, in the headlines because his parole officer was chasing him down at 2 a.m.
Did his talking on the field.
He was the guy that went in. That's why he went in as a president of Players Association. He was the one that went in and talked to them while they were in the cell.
Yeah.
His resume. They were like, if you can handle the Raiders, you can handle anybody.
He was used to getting guys out of trouble. So,
that's right.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. Number 10, Art Shell. There you go. I'll take number 9. Number 9 is Mr. Orlando Pace. Orlando Lamar Pace, to be exact. He was play tackle. He was drafted with the first pick overall in the 1997 draft by the St. Louis Rams. He played his entire career for the Rams except for his last year. 2009, he played for the Bears. And he was a Super Bowl champion in Super Bowl 34. 7-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro, and member of the 2000s All-Decade team, and his accolades go on and on. He just a really, really, really tough tackle. But he actually introduced the game of football to the term pancake. Because at the point of attack, he left a trail of destruction that was evidenced by defenders laying flat on their backs.
That term was around in the 80s. But he did it. He definitely had.
He personified it, though.
Yeah, he did.
Well, I think that's actually a wrestling term, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but
the move lets you pancake a guy.
If you're an offensive lineman and you pancake somebody, that's the equivalent of like having a 3-touchdown game as a so-called skills player. I always love that.
Sure.
Because it takes no skill to block another 400-pound man from taking your head off.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Especially in the old days, as I might say, back in the day,
Sure.
when guys were not the days of the head slap and the forearm shiver and all of those things.
Yeah.
He was definitely a big key in that Super Bowl 34 win from the greatest show on turf.
Yeah.
Marshall Faulk wouldn't have rushed for a number of the yards he rushed for if it wasn't for Orlando Pace. So.
And I think he's one of the best pass blockers of all time.
Yeah. So, cool.
All right,
you go.
Number 9,
Orlando Pace. Harry, bring us to number 8, please.
Number 8 is Randall McDaniel. This guy kind of changed the position. He was a guard. He was really athletic. I think he still holds the record for the fastest 100-meter dash ever among offensive linemen at 10.5 seconds. He was a standout athlete, and you could see that he was. It's probably 6'4", 280s. He was just one of these guys that got out and really. You noticed his athleticism on the field. And I think he sort of, he started in the late 80s, really became a dominant figure in the 90s on those Vikings teams. And, one could say he was a big reason why one of the best running backs in the history of the game had so much success. He was a 12-time Pro Bowler and NFL All-90s All-Decade team, NFL 100 Anniversary All-Team. I mean, when you talk about guards, he's probably one of the top 3 that come up. And again, a few years later, especially in the 2000s, he became the poster boy for what people were really looking for in offensive linemen, which was way more athleticism along with size. And I think, and he had a pretty long career. He played 1 year with the Bucks, but he'll obviously be known as a Minnesota Viking, and he'll be in the Hall of Fame here shortly. Actually, he was inducted into the Pro Hall of Fame.
He was, yeah. He's in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. So yeah, just a great guard, and definitely a key guy in those Minnesota offensive lines of that time. He was great talent. Number 8. Randall McDaniel. Radio Pete, bring us to number 7.
Number 7, one of my favorites, of course.
Which is why you're doing him.
I appreciate that. Larry, I don't think this is his official nickname, but Larry Straight Outta Compton Allen.
Straight Outta Compton.
He came from Compton and
yes,
played for the Dallas Cowboys from 94 through 2005, a couple of years with San Francisco to finish up his career. Obviously, a Hall of Famer, 11 times to the Pro Bowl, 6 times an All-Pro. Did have a Super Bowl win, Super Bowl 30, of course. Great against the most hated Pittsburgh Steelers in that one. So there's something to celebrate there, a little extra to celebrate. And Hall of Fame, all 90s and all 2000s team. Allen was he was kind of a freak. He was about 6'3", I think, and a little over 300 pounds, but just known for strength, feats of strength. Bench pressing 705 pounds, squatting over 900 pounds, doing, I think, setting records with repetitions of bench presses of over 500 pounds. Just an incredibly strong guy, but fast. He had speed. He had great lateral movement. He was a guy who definitely played both guard and tackle in his career. And he was a guy that you definitely wanted guarding your blind side if you were a quarterback. Again, not one of the biggest guys, but again, one of the strongest and a very intelligent player as well.
Yeah, he wasn't a dirty player either, and
No,
the opponents were afraid of him too. Yeah,
he was sort of a, of the unsung guys in the trenches. He was sort of the personification of Dallas, and sort of the later, hearkening back to sort of the America's team.
Sure,
good guy, good player.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Dallas is always known for their offense. I mean, having great offensive linemen, and he definitely stands out even above a pretty good list of guys, even guys he played with at that time.
Yeah, you can easily say he was the best of anyone who ever, played on that line for the Dallas Cowboys, and that is an impressive list.
There you go. Number 7, Larry Allen. I'll take number 6. Number 6 is Mr. Jonathan Phillip Ogden. Jonathan Phillip Ogden, which is strange because, and I did not name him after Jonathan Ogden, but my son is Jonathan Phillip. So,
and his last name is Ogden, which is
his
so
last
odd.
name is Ogden, so it's odd,
Yeah.
But in any event, Jonathan Phillip Ogden was drafted 4th pick overall, round number 1 for the Ravens. Played from 96 to 07. Super Bowl champion in Super Bowl 35, a Super Bowl which I choose not to remember. He was a 4-time first-team All-Pro, 5-time second-team All-Pro. He was 11-time Pro Bowler. With the exception of his rookie year, he was a Pro Bowler every year he played football. He was a member of the offensive. He was offensive lineman of the year in 2002. Member of the 2000s All-Decade team. Member of the 100th anniversary team. He's in the Baltimore Ravens Ring of Honor. Just crazy good tackle. Sorry. In fact, he started his rookie year. He started at left guard and slid over to left tackle. Started straight out of the gate his rookie year as left guard and moved to tackle. But he definitely helped pave the way for Jamal Lewis, who racked up over 2,000 rushing yards in 2003. And he definitely was a big part and parcel of the Ravens beating the Giants in 2000 and Super Bowl 35. Kerry Collins was a big part of that too, but that's just because he choked. But I didn't say that.
Let's be honest, they didn't deserve to be there.
The Giants?
Yeah.
Well, they did beat Minnesota in the championship game 41-0. So, I mean, and Minnesota, you would say, deserved to be there. And, I would, looking back at it, pulling myself out of being a Giants fan, Minnesota probably deserved to be in that Super Bowl more than the Giants did.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Of the two, for what they did during the regular season. But the Giants, and the Giants obviously had the better record. But, against what Baltimore did that year was just obviously, wasn't fun for Giants fans. But it was definitely, it was their year. It was their year. Just like 86 was the 85 was the Chicago Bears year, and 86 was the Giants year. 2000 was the Ravens year, and Jonathan Ogden was a big part of that. So
he's great, one of the best ever.
Number 6, Jonathan Ogden. Harry, bring us to number 5.
Number 5 is Bruce Matthews, who I think it's a very simple argument to make that he was the most versatile of all offensive linemen. Because when you ask what position did he play, you're like, yep. Exactly.
The answer is yes.
Primarily a guard, but he played in his first 3 years. He played guard, center, and tackle. He played right guard. Then he played center for 4 years. Then he ended his career playing left guard. He was a long snapper, and one of the most versatile offensive linemen of all time, and is tied for the NFL record for most Pro Bowls with 14. He's a 9-time first-team All-Pro. 1990s all-decade team, NFL 100th anniversary all team. I mean, this guy, I struggled with where to put him on my list, and I wound up putting him a little higher just because when I looked back, I didn't realize he had played that long and played that many positions. And to be a Pro Bowl, look, even changing from right tackle to left tackle is a big change for an offensive lineman. To be able to really move through all positions as much as he did in his career and to excel at each of them, I don't think there's anybody who's done that since. And he's also, I believe, the father of Clay Matthews. And I think his brother was an offensive lineman as well, who played in the NFL. But big football family, and I think he was on all of our lists without a doubt. He's I don't think there's any denying. He's just consensus for this list.
Yeah, the top six. The order changed with a couple of them, but the top six were on all of our lists. So well, there you go. Number 6. Bruce Matthews. Radio Pete, bring us to number. I'm sorry, that was number 5. Number 4, please.
Number 4, Iron Mike Webster. Really, you could say he's kind of the anchor on the offensive line for the great Steelers teams in the four Super Bowls that they won in the mid to late 70s. He was there for all of them. 9 times to the Pro Bowl and 5 times in All-Pro, Hall of Fame, all 70s and all 80s teams. This guy, speaking of playing a long time, 245 games in his career. He played from 74 to 1990. Which seems nearly impossible.
Yeah.
And the last couple of years with Kansas City, he was actually brought there as their offensive line coach after the '88 season. But I guess he talked them into playing a couple more years, and he became their starting center. So, this just one of the great players, and to have that kind of longevity, and to, like I said, just be an anchor of what you could maybe argue after San Francisco, or I'm sure there are people who would say that was the greatest dynasty in NFL history, was the 70s Steelers. Certainly the defense gets a lot of credit, and the skilled players get a lot of credit. But again, this was a guy who was in the trenches making it happen. The engine doesn't run, or the train doesn't go without the engine, and Mike Webster was part of that engine. And unfortunately, post-football, he had not such a great life, actually. After he died, he was diagnosed with CTE, and the end of his life was spent basically homeless and struggling with mental illness. So something against perhaps a cautionary tale to play that many years, but he obviously one of the all-time greats with that long career.
Yeah, if you ever saw the movie. What was the Will Smith movie? What was it?
Ali?
No. No, the one on CTE, the one he did with.
Men in Black 3.
I know what you're talking about.
It was before, actually.
But I didn't see it.
Yeah, concussion. Name of the movie. Yeah. He was the first player that doctor that Will Smith portrayed. Whatchamacallit? Diagnosed, yeah, and came up with the CTE diagnosis. And it was a shame. Yeah, you're absolutely right. He was homeless, basically, lived in cars.
I didn't know all this until I read it this week about it. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I mean, pulling his teeth out. I mean, he was just. It's just a disgusting, horrible shame. But it was one of the things that led to a lot of the safety measures that they're taking these days. So. That's obviously, not a good thing, going forward. But it was just horrible for these guys in the past. But that aside, what a warrior. All the years he played. I mean, early 70s to the 90s.
Yeah, I don't think there's any argument he's the best center of all time, and one of the few people on our list who not only won 1 Super Bowl but won 4. Yeah, and he was. There was a couple people that had shorter playing careers that were, maybe could have matched up with with him, but he's without a doubt the best center of all time. And it is really unfortunate what, the damage that it did to his life, but on the field and during his playing days, certainly one of the best ever.
Absolutely. Number 4, Mike Webster. I'll do number 3. Number 3 is Mr. Forrest Gregg. And it's actually Alvis Forrest Gregg. Forrest is his middle name, in case you were wondering. He was drafted in round number 2. Actually, one of the first players on our list that wasn't actually drafted in the first round or went undrafted. Pick number 20 overall by the Packers in 1956. I played 56 and then 58 through 70 with the Packers. Played a year with the Cowboys in 71. But his obviously most known for his days with the Packers. Whatchamacallit, he was a 3-time Super Bowl champion. Super Bowl I, Super Bowl II, and he won Super Bowl VI with the Cowboys.
I think he won 6 championships.
5 NFL champion, 5-time NFL champions. So it was 61, 62, and then 65 through 67, which were obviously encompassing Super Bowl I and Super Bowl II. Wow. And then he won his 6th in Super Bowl VI. Yeah. But a 9-time Pro Bowler, 7-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time second-team All-Pro, member of the 70th anniversary team, member of the 100th anniversary team, 60s All-Decade team. Member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was just Vince Lombardi once described Forrest Gregg as the greatest player that he ever coached. And Lombardi coached Frank Gifford, Jim Taylor, Paul Hornung, Bart Starr, Jerry Kramer, and Ray Nitschke. So that's saying a lot. It really is.
He's tied with only 3 other people for the most NFL championships of all time. So interestingly enough, another guy on that list is an offensive lineman who might win best name of an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Fuzzy Thurston.
Thurston. There you go. He was an Iron Man. He had 188 straight games between 56 and 71, and 9 trips to the Pro Bowl during that time. He was just a really, really, really good tackle. So,
yeah,
there you go. Number 3, Forrest Gregg. Harry, bring us to number 2.
Number 2, I think consensus with all of us at number 2 is none other than John Hannah, also known as the Hog. And we've talked about John Hannah before because he was I think he was the first Old Balls recipient.
He was the first Old Balls recipient. Very good. Yes, he was.
10-time All-Pro, 1970s All-Decade team, 1980s All-Decade team, 75th anniversary all-time. I mean, when you talk about offensive linemen, his name is always in the top 2, 3, 4 that come up. He's not really all that well known. He only because I think he played in an era where there just wasn't as much. Believe it or not, there was a time when the Patriots were not necessarily a big market team that were on television all the time.
Sure.
And but he sort of reinvented the position. Again, one of these guys who was a game changer at the position. He was incredibly athletic, really strong, really fast. Wasn't a super big guy, but for the time was the sort of a prototypical guard. I think he was he played for Bear Bryant at Alabama. I think maybe he played tackle, but he was moved to guard in the NFL and really stayed there and was. I think if you ask 100 people, 98 of them would say he's the best guard of all time. And I just remember watching him as a kid. He was so good that when the Patriots were like doing their marketing, I remember for some reason my mom bought me a duffel bag of the New England Patriots. Why? I don't know. It's probably at sale at Two Guys or something.
Might have been a giveaway.
But it was Steve Grogan, and John Hannah. And when do you have as the one person you're celebrating as an offensive lineman? It's just rare. And he was that good. He was that good and just kind of one of these old school stoic guys who made a hell of a career for himself and was I think he's the best guard of all time. And I think there's an argument you can make that he was the best offensive lineman of all time.
Yeah, he's right there. I mean, he was part of that 78 Patriots team that bulldozed defenses for like almost 3,200 yards on the ground. It was that was a crazy year for the Pats. That's back that's pre Pats being a formidable team that everybody, that not everybody, but the bulk of the younger crew out there thinking of what New England is right now. There was a time when New England was the Browns, and not that the Browns are the Browns right now, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. There was a time when New England was the Jets. Yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, we don't have to go that far.
Yeah. But
he was a bright spot. He was a bright spot on some pretty lousy Patriots.
Yeah.
Well, it was him and Leon Gray and Russ Francis, who were just maybe the best trio to line up next to each other in blocking. And he was one of those guys who would just pull out. All of a sudden, he would block a linebacker. Then he'd be downfield ahead of the running back, knocking out 2 defensive backs. It's just he just took out 4 or 5 guys at a time. It's just unbelievable.
It was unbelievable. They had that, and they had their issues back then. But those late '70s Patriots teams were actually they won the division a couple of times. In the late '70s. Yeah. Yeah, they were the Pats before the Pats were the Pats, if you want to call it that.
Well, he was the first Patriots ever inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Yes, he was. There you go, folks. Number 2, John Hanna. Radio Pete, bring us to number 1.
All right, number 1. This, I believe, was a consensus amongst
Absolutely a consensus.
Amongst anyone who knows anything about football, and that is, of course, Mr. Anthony Munoz of the Cincinnati Bengals. And a long career with them, drafted number 3 overall in 1980. Played 185 games for the Bengals and started, I think, 183 or 184 of them. Big guy. 6'6", around 280 pounds, but one of the most athletic people ever to play on the line. And just a pretty amazing guy. If you kind of look at 11 straight times to the Pro Bowl, played 13 seasons, went 11 consecutive years to the Pro Bowl, 9 times an All-Pro, inducted into the Hall of Fame, of course, Hall of Fame All 1980s team. And again, a great athlete. He was named the Offensive Lineman of the Year in 1981, 87, and 88, as well as the NFL Players Association Lineman of the Year in 81, 85, 88, and 89. Again, only missed 3 games due to injury. And they were not some of those games. I believe he started and then was injured. And he actually caught 7 passes in his career, lining up as an eligible receiver, and scored 4 touchdowns.
Yes, he did.
So, and a big part of Kansas City's drive to Central Division titles, and of course was on both of their AFC Championship teams in 81 and 88. He's pretty much. I don't think there's anybody who would argue. I mean, again, you could quibble a little bit here and there, but number 1 overall is Anthony Munoz.
And who's that in the picture that's holding the ball like behind him? Who's that?
That's some radio guy, I think.
It's Phil Simms' brother.
Phil Simms' brother, Boomer.
That's Carton's partner.
Not anymore. Gio's partner. Yeah. And he was a big part and parcel of those 2 Super Bowl drives. And honestly, you know what? If it wasn't for Mr. Montana, they would have had that Super Bowl in '88 or late '89 Super Bowl, but the '88 season. They were, I honestly, to this day, the 49ers were great back then, but I really believed that the Bengals were winning that game. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, you feel for somebody like Anthony Munoz and Boomer, for that matter, and maybe a little bit of Chris Collinsworth. But
no, I was going to say Anthony Munoz was this good, and he had to listen to Chris Collinsworth. Yeah. I mean, that's what put him over the top for John Hanna for me. We're like, oh wait, he played with Chris Collinsworth. Yeah. That had to be painful.
And Boomer Esiason. I mean, I have some affection for him because of his Jets career, but he's a bit of a mouthpiece too. So.
A little bit, but
I wouldn't want to listen to either of them.
There you go. They'll do a special one day where it'll be Boomer and Chris.
Boomer and Gio
will take a week off, and Chris will come in and. But anyway, well, there you go. Number 1, Anthony Munoz. That is our top 10 list for this week, folks. Good job, everybody. Definitely a good list. That should bring us to this week's Old Balls, too.
Old Balls.
Harry, Why don't you tell us who this week's Old Balls?
Well, in keeping with offensive linemen, this week's Old Balls is an old offensive lineman named Jim Otto. Jim Otto played for the Raiders from 1960 to 1974, really in the AFL days. He played, if I'm looking at my stats here, I think he played in 210 straight games. He never missed a game in his career. He's one of, I think, 10 players to play in every AFL game. It's just, I mean, that, he didn't miss one. He's a 10-time first-team All-AFL. He was an AFL champion in 67, 9-time All-Star, 3-time Pro Bowler. Of course, those were the only 3 years he was in the NFL to be a Pro Bowler. And just one of these guys, he wasn't super big. He was about 6'2", 250, but was just a stalwart at center. And when I think of old school football, Jim Otto is one of those guys that just comes up. I think he's had like over 70 operations. He had 9 operations on his knee during his playing career.
While he was playing, not missing a game, he had 9 operations.
So I mean,
a couple of them during timeouts.
Yeah. Just
some during drives.
That's right. And they didn't even have cordless drills then. They just had to bring him over to the side. And yeah, I mean, he's just one of those guys. And part of that, he played offense and defense too during a lot of those games. So it's crazy. Interesting thing, which I didn't know until I was reading the other day about him, was that he was the subject of the Jim Otto Suite, which was a series of multimedia works by Matthew Barney, who's a famous artist who went on to do the Cremaster movies, and whom one of my friends actually worked for a brief period of time out there in Queens and Brooklyn. But I mean, it's just interesting. He's one of these guys who I think, just look at his picture. He just looks like a 60s football player. It's just, I mean, maybe a combination.
Except that he's smiling.
Yeah, he looks like a combination of a football player and Reuben Kincaid.
And that was his number 2,
the Partridge Family.
That was his number 2, folks. 0.
Yeah. He's just like, I don't need a damn number. Yeah. Jim Otto, I mean, he was almost, he almost made this list. He was hovering in next to that 10th spot, but
he could have been 10B.
Yeah, but
or 10A for that matter.
Yeah,
right.
Just one of the kind of super stories of old school NFL linemen for sure.
Absolutely, he made it like a quest to like prove to all the teams that passed up on him that he was one of the biggest mistakes those franchises ever made too. So
yeah,
and he was right.
And he was 100% right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, kind of fitting he wound up on the Raiders. The Raiders, I mean, one thing you have to give the Raiders credit for is that back in the day, they used to take chances and a lot of times those chances turned out to be pretty special. Yeah. On players that other people passed up on.
Absolutely. There you go. This week's Old Balls, Mr. Jim Otto. Old Balls. All right, folks. A couple of other things really quick. Let's talk about some Hot Stove. A little bit going on. Not a whole hell of a lot, but as far as the Mets go, I'm not sure if it's happened as of yet, but earlier today the Mets were close to inking a 4-year deal with James McCann, catcher from the White Sox. I said that I'm absolutely fine with McCann. I don't know your feeling, Pete, and for that matter, Harry, if you have any feelings about it at all. But I don't think this team needs to get a 7 or 8 year contract to JT Realmuto with super crazy numbers. They have Alvarez in the minors, and he's gonna come up to be prospect anyway of an amazing catcher. I think he's the number 2 prospect right now. But I'm fine with McCann for what he's done the last few years, being a stopgap to get Alvarez up here and then working with him when he does make it up here. And especially with the money. And I know, quote unquote, Uncle Steve, he's got all the money in the world, but they're not going to go out and spend $300 million and have so much of a luxury tax. So I think it's more important for them to sign Springer and Bauer than get Real Muto and miss out on one of those two. So just my feelings. Pete?
Yeah, I'm not expecting a money waterfall from Steve Cohen, and McCann I think is a little bit younger, right?
No, he's actually 9 months older than Real Muto.
Oh, okay. So all right. So same difference basically. Neither one of them you're going to want around after the next couple of years, right? As a catcher, they're going to be getting into the aging part of a catcher. Look, Real Muto's going to cost
30,
you.
so right now.
Yeah, they're both 30. So, it's going to cost you a little bit less money, and this is something of a drop off. But I think you're right. They're looking at Alvarez as the future, and McCann will be a good way to. I think stopgap is the word you use, and I think that's a good word for what he'll be, and hopefully a good mentor. And that's going to leave them more money to spend on some of those other positions. So I think it's a good move. Like you can't go out and get the most expensive, biggest name at every position. You can't kind of. You can, but he's not looking. He's not looking to launch. He's not a drug lord.
He's not looking
laundering money into a baseball team.
He's not spending his entire $11 billion on the Mets this year. So
he's going to spend. He's going to spend. He's going to spend smartly,
right,
intelligently, and I think this is a good move for them.
Real Muto is looking for like $150 million contract, and that's just not. It's not going to happen. And I don't think he's going to get that from anybody, to be honest with you. Grandal signed a 4-year deal with the White Sox for a little over 60 million. But I don't.
And we don't know when fans are coming back. When that revenue stream is going to.
You don't know.
Return. We'd like to think it's going to be next year, but we don't know exactly. How fast the vaccine is going to be out and how effective it's going to be, and there's other things that have to happen besides the vaccine to cut down on the spread of the virus. So, you don't want to be $150 million over the cap.
I think it's a good move,
even if it means a championship.
Right, I think it's a good move.
You mean you don't want to be holding on to an overpaid catcher who's not living up to his value?
Right. No.
I think McCann's a good defensive catcher. I think he's average at the plate. I think what he brings to this pitching staff, which I think the Mets have potential of having one of the best starting rotations if they make a couple moves here, and I think he's going to be a big part of that. So he's still going to be your everyday catcher. 30's not young, but it's not old. He's got a couple years left in him for sure.
Yeah, 4-year deal is not a bad thing.
I think it's a good move. It's a safe move, and I think he's a good fit. I mean, I like him. I think he's a good catcher.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's a smart move. As long as they go out and they sign Springer and Bauer, I think it's a smart move. I mean, they got and it's not to say that they're not. I mean, they're damn close with Springer too. Well, Bauer is basically begging Steve Cohen to sign him. So,
and the rumor is that they're in the hunt for DJ.
You know what? Let's go over to the Yankees for a second. What? I know they have all their eggs in that DJ LeMahieu basket. But
I don't think they have all their eggs in it.
Well,
I just think that's the obvious.
Well, let me ask you this:
re-signing for them,
right? No, it is the obvious re-signing for them. But let me. The reason I say that is, let me ask you this: don't you think that the Yankees need to upgrade their starting rotation?
Well, of course, and I think they're obviously giving up on a couple people there.
Right.
Having said that, though, I think DJ LeMahieu is one of 2 to 3 players on the Yankees that you want to do everything you possibly can to keep.
Sure, and I agree with that. But here's my point.
It doesn't mean you're going to get pitchers. The Yankees still have money to get pitchers and re-signing DJ. And I think LeMahieu is one of those guys who will re-sign to stay with the Yankees for a reasonable amount.
Right.
I don't. If it was, hey, you could get 2 top starters for DJ, then that's a different story. But there's no guarantee in that. And the Yankees have proven reluctant, other than last year, to go out and really get a top starter. I mean, they got Garrett Cole, which worked out well. Obviously, He's one of the top 4 or 5 starters in Major League Baseball, but he's not enough. And I think that they're trying to work through what they currently have. I think there's something in the works there, pitcher-wise. But if they could just re-sign DJ and get rid of some of the contracts that are hurting them, I think they're in a good position. I don't think they need a ton on the offensive side. They need pitching. But DJ LeMahieu would be a big loss. He'd be a big loss to this offense.
If they don't re-sign him, it'd be a huge loss.
Because he's really one of the only guys who can play small ball on this whole team. And he's proven to be not only their most consistent hitter and highest hitter for average, he's their most clutch hitter. And, a lot of the other big names on the Yankees have not, in my opinion, have not lived up to their billing. And LeMahieu was a signing that went under the radar to a large degree. He's versatile. He's a team guy, and he's obviously proved himself for 2 years now. So I would be really, really disappointed if the Yankees don't sign him, because I think he's in some ways embodies the personality of where this team is going.
Right.
Other than Judge and a few more of the other big names in that lineup, I'm okay with the rest of them going if they can get pitching. But LeMahieu is the one I'm not okay with going.
Right.
It's keeping him gonna prevent the Yankees from getting pitching.
No.
If the answer is no, then you sign him and bring him back.
But that's my point.
What was a bigger problem for the Yankees last year, particularly in the playoffs? Was it their pitching or was it their offense?
Right. And that's kind
so,
of
do you want to remove what is arguably the best cog in what makes
I would say the argument for I'd say the problem for the Yankees was scoring runs in a lot of ways.
That's what I mean.
And their bullpen and this vaulted bullpen, which everybody said was the best in Major League Baseball, could not outlast the other people, especially in a COVID environment, in a bubble environment where they're playing every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the Yankees have a lot of pitchers that they can move to get other pitchers. I don't think there's a team that has a top-notch starter or a drop-dead closer it's going to be a straight trade for DJ LeMahieu. I just don't think there is.
I agree with what you said about the fact that re-signing DJ LeMahieu is not going to prevent them from getting more starting pitching. But my question is, they don't seem to be pursuing. And granted, we don't know anything. Obviously, they can be pursuing all they want, but nothing's been leaked. They haven't said anything or anything like that. It's almost as if, and it's the era of what it seems to be, that they're waiting to sign DJ LeMahieu before they make any other moves. So if that
could be it. The Yankees were quiet when they signed Cole too, and they have not made big moves for pitching in the last 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, they re-signed Chapman, which I thought was a mistake.
Right.
But other than that, they really haven't made big name moves where you're like, all right, now they got 2 top-notch starters.
Right.
And it seems like with some of the contracts that are running out on some of their current pitchers, they're kind of going to let them go.
Right.
And so that tells me that they're kind of waiting to see where those guys go. And I think they're waiting. And the Yankees' game plan, unless they're really going after the top-notch free agent, I think they kind of wait and see what they can get. And I think they might be looking more at quantity rather than overall quality. If they can get 2-3 pitchers that can fall into the rotation and do a good job, that's going to serve them way better than, I think, losing their best offensive player for another potential.
Well, and also, where would you say Tanaka falls on their list as far as pitchers they want to bring back? I don't know. Does he really want to go anywhere else?
I think they're going to wait and see. I think
seems like they are. Yeah.
I think that's exactly right. I think they're going to wait and see if anybody else scoops him up, and if he goes anywhere else. If he's just still hanging around, then they'll throw him a year, maybe 2. Yeah. That kind of a thing.
I can't think of anybody who'd be dying to bring Masahiro Tanaka in, and certainly the Yankees have put up with his highs and lows.
Sure.
So maybe
that's the frustration with Tanaka is that there's moments where you're like, all right, now
this guy's great,
and he was the ace of the staff for a few years there.
Sure, yeah,
but he's been injured, and he's getting up there, and he hasn't been as consistent as you would want. But that's my whole point with starting pitchers. I mean, you can count on one hand the starting pitchers that have been really, really good and really, really consistent for 2 or 3 years in a row, and the Yankees have one of them, and they're not going to get 2, 3, 4 of the other top 5.
Yeah,
they're just not going to. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
well, We will see what happens. Things are continuing to play out. We'll report back next week. We'll find out anything else going on with any other teams even in Hot Stove. But that's pretty much where it stands at the moment. Things are starting to heat up. Winter meetings, virtual winter meetings just started. So we expect more stuff by this time next week. So we'll talk about it then.
By the way, the NBA starts in 13 days.
And yeah, by the way, the NBA starts in 13 days. Quick question on the Knicks, really quick: is Knox a bust?
We don't know yet.
Who's
a bust? I mean, I'm not so sure he starts this year. I think he's still, might be coming off the bench.
Right.
I didn't have as big as expectations as everybody did. I didn't have as big expectations with Knox as I did for Barrett.
Right. Well, Calipari said to give Knox time. Give him time. He'll get there.
He's going to have plenty of time.
So,
it's. I mean, if you can't bust into the starting lineup on the Knicks, then as a first-round draft pick, then maybe you're right. Maybe he is a bust. But I just didn't have as much.
It's tough to judge the NBA, though. You really have to give guys years.
Yeah.
They really have to, and they have to actually, be playing and kind of.
Knox is kind of a tweener, and he's not. He has. It comes down to whether or not he can really improve his outside shooting.
Yeah. So.
Yet another. Yet another not so big, not so small forward on the New York Knicks.
Exactly.
Lots of potential there, though. Lots of potential.
I think they do have potential. They have potential if they can land a superstar, because I think they have a good supporting team. But I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, we've talked about this before.
Yeah, we have.
I think they're going to be better than they were last year, and they started to show some signs last year.
Yeah.
But the Knicks' game plan is really to give the young guys as much playing time as possible, and they've cleared their cap space. So they're ready to sign somebody if somebody's willing to come to them. Who that's going to be, I don't know.
I mean, even Mitchell Robinson. I mean, he's been improving, and he's working on his free throws and 3-pointers. And Thibodeau's obviously going to make him better on defense.
He's a great defensive player already, and he's got with him and Obi, they're going to really have some good off-ball defenders, and they're long.
Right.
So I think the Knicks could be in the top 5 or 6 in the league in shot blocks. Right. The problem with them is none of them are really natural defenders one-on-one, and they're not. When they go up against a true center, what are they going to do rebound-wise? And Mitchell Robinson's he broke the record for the highest field goal percentage in the history of the NBA.
He did, yeah.
But all he does is dunk the ball and hit 2-foot jumpers. So we'll see.
We'll see. We'll have a lot more on the NBA next week with the season starting just after our show next week. So we'll talk a little bit more about the NBA at that point. All right, folks. That should wrap the show up for today. I want to thank everybody for watching. And for those of you just listening to the audio podcast, thanks for listening. Don't forget to visit our website, www.logroom.com. That's LEGERROM.com. And please remember, like us and follow us on all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and our YouTube channel. All of them are at The Log Room. Remember, we go live with the video podcast on both Facebook and YouTube every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And for those of you that want to just listen to the audio podcast, you can do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to one or more of those feeds, and you will never miss a show. Again, thanks for following along with us. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon. Take care, guys.
Ciao.
Peace.
Look at the little Tula. She's talking to the producer there. And a woman in a jumpsuit throws